The weekend was supposed to be perfect. Christine sat quietly in the passenger seat, her fingers laced with Patrick's as their car wound its way up the narrow mountain road into the Cascades. She rolled the window down, letting the crisp Oregon air rush in. It smelled of pine and damp earth, laced with the faint sweetness of fallen autumn leaves. Sunlight filtered through the trees, scattering golden shards of light across the windshield. For a fleeting moment, Christine let herself believe this trip might patch the quiet distance that had been growing between them. "Thank you for planning this, Patrick," she said softly, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. "We really needed some time away from everything." Patrick smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. His gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, quick and restless, though Christine didn't notice. She was too busy soaking in the beauty of the forest and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the two of them could find their way back to each other. When they finally pulled up to the Mackenzie River cabin, Christine gasped. The place looked like it belonged on the cover of a travel magazine. Wooden beams, wide terraces, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing a sweeping view of the rushing river below. She stepped out, her boots crunching against the gravel, and stretched her arms as though she could hug the whole scene. "This is incredible," she whispered, already picturing cozy nights curled up with Patrick by the fire, laughter replacing the silences that had grown too common. But the moment she stepped inside, something unsettled her. A faint perfume lingered in the air, floral, expensive, unfamiliar. It didn't smell like her, and it didn't smell like Patrick. She froze in the doorway, frowning. He would never betray her, would he? Before she could ask, the front door burst open. Claire and Mark stepped in, faces bright with excitement. "Surprise!" Claire sang out, pulling Christine into a hug that was just a little too tight. Christine stiffened. "I thought this weekend was just for us," she murmured, glancing at Patrick. Mark clapped him on the shoulder, grinning. Patrick wanted to celebrate closing that big contract. "We thought we'd join for the first night. Don't worry, we'll leave you two lovebirds alone tomorrow." Christine forced a polite smile, though disappointment pressed heavy in her chest. She didn't want to ruin the mood. Not here, not now. That evening, string lights glowed across the terrace as glasses clinked and laughter spilled into the night. Christine sipped her wine slowly, trying to relax, but Patrick kept checking his phone like he was waiting for someone. Each time the screen lit up, her stomach twisted a little tighter. "Everything okay?" she whispered when no one was watching. "Just work," he said too quickly, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. "This weekend is ours." She nodded, though unease clung to her like a shadow. Hours later, long after midnight, Christine stirred awake. The bed beside her was empty. Frowning, she pushed back the covers and listened. Muffled voices drifted through the night air outside. Barefoot, heart hammering, she crept to the door and eased it open. The cold bit into her skin as she leaned closer. "You sure you can handle this?" Mark's voice was low, cautious. "Of course," Patrick replied firmly. "Everything's planned down to the last detail. Christine won't suspect a thing." The certainty in his voice cut like a knife. Christine's breath caught, a chill racing down her spine. She slipped back into bed, forcing her body still. When Patrick returned minutes later, she lay with her eyes closed, pretending to sleep. But she didn't drift off again. She stared at the ceiling until dawn, haunted by his words. The next morning, Patrick greeted her with a bright smile and a steaming mug of coffee. He looked calm, too calm. "I thought I heard voices outside last night," she said carefully, searching his face. "Probably Mark and me. Just talking late," he replied smoothly, not missing a beat. Before she could press him, Claire swept into the kitchen in a flowing dress that hugged her curves. "Good morning, lovebirds," she teased, giving Christine a quick hug before flashing Patrick a glance that lingered just a little too long. Over breakfast, Christine noticed Claire laughing too hard at Patrick's jokes, brushing his arm as she passed a plate. Each touch seemed deliberate, sharpened by something unspoken. Christine's stomach tightened with every gesture. While they cleaned up, Claire leaned in, her perfume filling the space. "You know, sometimes I think you're too lucky," she said, her voice smooth but edged. Christine blinked. "What do you mean?" Claire's smile was thin. Her eyes glittered. "You've got a successful husband, stability. Some people would kill for that. Envy can be ugly. Before Christine could respond, Patrick walked in. Claire's hand lingered on his arm a fraction too long before she pulled away, her expression unreadable. Later, on the Pine Ridge Trail, the men strode ahead, lost in quiet conversation. Claire slowed her pace until she and Christine walked side by side. After a long silence, Claire asked suddenly, "Christine, have you ever suspected anything about Patrick?" Christine's pulse thundered in her ears. "Why would you say that?" she snapped, her voice sharper than she meant. Claire shrugged, feigning innocence. Men like him, so charming, so magnetic, they usually hide things. Sometimes very dirty things. Christine froze, the words slicing deeper than she wanted to admit. Claire's half-smile told her she knew exactly what she was doing. That evening, the sunset painted the river in streaks of gold and fire. Christine sat alone on the deck, her thoughts spiraling, when the sound of footsteps startled her. Daniel appeared, his jaw tight, his expression carved with tension. "Mind if I sit?" he asked softly. Christine blinked. "Oh, Daniel, I didn't even realize you were here." He lowered himself beside her, his hands clenched on his knees. "You look troubled." Her chest tightened. "It's been a strange weekend." Daniel drew in a shaky breath, his voice trembling but resolute. "Christine, I can't stay quiet anymore. You don't deserve this." Fear prickled down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Daniel raked a hand down his face before meeting her eyes. His voice cracked with anger and sorrow. "This weekend, it's all a setup. Patrick accepted a disgusting bet from Mark and the others. They wagered he couldn't bring you and his lover under the same roof without you realizing." The words struck Christine like a blow to the chest. She staggered back a step, shaking her head. No, Patrick would never." Daniel's voice hardened, cutting through her denial. "The woman is Claire. They've been together for months. Everyone knew. Everyone but you. This whole trip was never about romance. It was a setup to humiliate you." Christine's breath caught, her lungs burning as tears blurred her vision. In an instant, the fragments slammed together. The perfume that didn't belong, the lingering glances, the whispers in the dark. Her voice cracked. "I've been such a fool." Daniel gripped her shoulders gently, his eyes steady. "No, don't you dare blame yourself. You were betrayed by the people you trusted most. That's on them, not you." Her body shook as she broke down against him, sobs tearing through her chest. Daniel held her firmly, like he was anchoring her to the earth. And in that storm of grief, something else stirred inside her, hot, sharp, unyielding. Beneath the heartbreak rose a spark of rage, of defiance. By morning, she was no longer the same. Her tears had dried, leaving fire in their place. A folded note slipped under her door caught her eye. She bent to pick it up, her hands trembling as she read the scrawled words. "Chris, meet me at Pine Ridge Trail at 9. We need to talk." It was Daniel's handwriting. Bundled in her coat, she found him waiting beneath frost-dusted pines. His breath came in pale clouds, his expression grim. "I won't just walk away humiliated," she said, her voice steady now. "Patrick needs to face what he's done. He needs to feel the weight of it." Daniel nodded once, his jaw set. "Then we make him expose himself. He's arrogant. That's his weakness. If we record him, he'll condemn himself with his own words." That night, Christine dressed not to hide, but to confront. She chose a striking red dress that hugged her figure, a deliberate choice, a battle flag. In the mirror, the reflection staring back at her wasn't the broken woman from yesterday. She was sharper now, resolute, a woman ready to burn down the lies that had imprisoned her. When she descended the stairs, Patrick was already pouring wine. He looked up, and for the first time in years, she saw hesitation flicker across his smug face. "You look stunning tonight, Chris," he said, masking his unease with forced charm. "Good," she replied calmly, meeting his eyes with an intensity he couldn't decipher. "I wanted tonight to be memorable. After all, we have so much to celebrate." A crease formed between his brows, the first shadow of doubt. Dinner unfolded like theater, every detail arranged, but every gesture charged with hidden tension. Candles flickered across the long wooden table, casting restless shadows up the cabin walls. The fire crackled in the hearth, yet the room felt cold, each laugh hollow, every word hanging in fragile air. Patrick sat at the head of the table, tossing out jokes that no one found funny, his laugh brittle. He clung to his arrogance, but it slipped with every sip of wine. Christine sat across from him, a blazing figure in red, her silence sharper than any blade. Beside her, Daniel was quiet, steady, his hand brushing the phone hidden in his pocket, the phone carrying Patrick's own damning words. Boasting, laughing, admitting every ugly detail of his scheme. At the far end, Mark fumbled with his fork, guilt written across his face. His attempt at small talk faltered, his voice cracking before fading into silence. Across from him, Claire's hand shook as she reached for her wineglass. Her face was pale, her lips pressed tight, as if she wanted to vanish into the dark. Christine let them stew in silence before she rose. The red of her dress caught the light, but her voice was calm, steady, cutting. "My dear friends," she began softly, though her words rang clear. "Thank you for joining us for such a special moment." Patrick froze, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth. "Chris, sit down. What are you doing?" His voice was sharp but trembled at the edges. Christine's eyes locked on him. "No, Patrick. I'll stand. Everyone should hear this." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "Chris, maybe we should just eat first." Christine's gaze snapped to her, hard as steel. "You, Claire, don't get to ask me for anything. Not after what you did." Claire's head dropped, shame spreading across her face. Christine turned back to Patrick. Her words were precise, deliberate. "You've always been brilliant, Patrick. You fooled us all, especially me." Patrick's mask cracked. He half rose from his chair. "Enough. Whatever you think you know, this isn't the time or the place." Christine's voice turned to ice. "Oh, but it is. This table, this stage, you chose it. Everyone deserves to hear the truth. Patrick has been in a relationship with Claire. And worse, he made a bet that he could bring us all under one roof, sit us down together, and humiliate me without my realizing it." The air thickened. The room froze in stunned silence. Mark bowed his head, shame etched deep. Claire buried her face in her hands. Patrick shot to his feet, fury and panic colliding. "That's a lie. You're crazy." Christine didn't flinch. Calmly, she reached for Daniel's phone and held it up. "You've always been clever with words, Patrick. But this time, your own voice will betray you." She pressed play. The room filled with his laughter, cocky, cruel. His own voice boasting of the affair, the bet, the plan. Every word spilled out like poison, undeniable and final. Patrick's face drained of color. Claire sank back, shaking her head as though she could deny what they all now heard. Mark stared down at his plate, too ashamed to move. Christine stopped the recording. Her gaze locked on Patrick, steady and merciless. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed trust. You betrayed dignity. You destroyed everything we built. And there's no excuse left for you to hide behind." Patrick collapsed back into his chair, his arrogance stripped away, leaving him hollow. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Christine turned to Daniel, his steady eyes anchoring her. He leaned close and whispered, "It's done." She nodded slightly, then faced the table one last time. "This dinner," she said, her voice unshakable, "wasn't to celebrate Patrick's lie. It was to mark the end of it, and the beginning of my freedom. You've all made your choices. Now I'll make mine." With her head high, Christine walked away from the table. Her heels struck the wooden floor with finality. Behind her, silence swallowed the room, broken only by the restless crackle of the fire. Months passed, and spring had finally returned to Eugene, painting the city in gentle greens and soft pastels. At Alton Baker Park, the Willamette River shimmered like liquid glass beneath a wide, endless sky, reflecting the delicate blush of new leaves and the sun's golden rays. Children's laughter floated on the breeze, mingling with the distant hum of bicycles on the paths. Colorful kites bobbed and danced overhead, twisting and twirling in playful arcs, as if the wind itself had decided to celebrate life anew. Christine walked slowly along the winding path, the warmth of the sun kissing her face, the soft breeze carrying the scent of grass and flowering trees. Each step felt lighter than the last, as though the burdens that had weighed her down for so long had finally slipped away, leaving her unencumbered and free. Her chest expanded with a deep, almost startling sense of peace. She was breathing in possibility, exhaling fear. Daniel walked beside her, their fingers entwined in quiet, effortless intimacy. "You okay, Chris?" he asked softly, his voice low, threaded with concern and something more admiration, perhaps, or awe. She smiled, eyes bright and glimmering with relief and joy. "For the first time in years, yes. I'm really okay." The words felt as if they had been waiting for her all this time, finally freed from the cage of doubt. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, his thumb lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "I never doubted you for a second," he said. "You came out of all of it stronger than anyone could have imagined." Christine's gaze softened, the corners of her eyes crinkling with gratitude. "I didn't do it alone. You were there when everything was darkest." "Because I believed in you," Daniel replied, his voice thick with feeling, the kind of raw, unguarded honesty that made the world around them fade. "From the very beginning, my heart was yours. I was just waiting for the right moment to say it." Tears welled in Christine's eyes, glinting like sunlight on water, warm and cleansing. "Daniel, I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me for loving you," he whispered, cupping her face gently in his hands. "I just want the chance to be part of your new beginning. Will you let me?" Without fear, without doubt. Christine nodded, letting the tears fall freely now, each one a release of the months of tension, betrayal, and fear she had carried. "Yes, Daniel. That's exactly what I want." They embraced beneath the towering oak trees, the world around them dissolving into a blur of sunlight, laughter, and the scent of spring blooms. Their kiss was tender, deliberate, full of unspoken promises, a promise of something whole, real, and unshakable. Far away, in the sterile quiet of his office, Patrick sat alone. The empire he had built on ego and manipulation had crumbled to dust. Claire had vanished in the wake of scandal. Clients had deserted him, and even his friends had turned away. Silence was now his only companion, heavy and suffocating. On his desk lay an old photograph of himself and Christine. He stared at it, the hollow ache of regret pressing against his chest. He had thrown away something irreplaceable, something genuine, all for vanity and arrogance. Mark entered quietly, carrying a stack of folders. "More lawsuits?" Patrick asked, voice weary, drained. Mark nodded. "2 more clients canceled. The fallout isn't stopping." Patrick closed his eyes, letting the tension in his shoulders loosen for the first time in weeks. When he opened them again, there was something Christine had never seen in him before. Genuine remorse. "I ruined everything, Mark," he admitted quietly, stripped of all pretense. "I don't blame anyone but myself. I dug this hole with my own hands." Mark offered a tentative, sympathetic smile. "You could still rebuild, start over." Patrick shook his head bitterly. "Not this time. This time, I lost the only thing that ever mattered. Christine, she was everything. And I threw her away." Meanwhile, Christine and Daniel sat beneath the sprawling oak in Alton Baker Park. The afternoon sun poured gold across the grass, making the river glint and dance. Every leaf, every ripple seemed to celebrate the quiet triumph of healing and renewal. "Are you thinking about him?" Daniel asked gently, studying her face, his thumb brushing hers in absent reassurance. Christine exhaled slowly, shoulders easing as if the past itself had loosened its grip. "For a moment, yes, but not with anger. Not even with pain. I felt pity. He's paying the price for his choices. As for me, I don't want to look back anymore." Daniel squeezed her hand tenderly, a soft smile spreading across his face. "You're right, Chris. There's no room for the past. We're building our own future." Christine returned his smile, warm and unwavering, the sunlight catching in her dark hair. "Our future, Daniel. That's exactly what I want." And in that golden moment, with the river sparkling and the breeze carrying laughter and life, Christine felt it fully. Freedom, love, and the unshakable certainty that she was finally, entirely herself. They kissed beneath the warm Oregon sun, the light spilling across the forest and river like a promise written in gold. Each gentle brush of lips was more than an embrace. It was a declaration, a quiet vow that no shadow from the past could touch them again. Christine inhaled deeply, the crisp, pine-scented air filling her lungs, as though she were breathing in every lingering doubt, every fear, every trace of humiliation that had clung to her, and exhaling them into the wide, open sky. The weight she had carried for so long lifted, leaving behind only clarity, resolve, and a heart newly awakened. She was no longer the betrayed, broken woman she had been. She was something else entirely, stronger, more resilient, alive in ways she had only dreamed of. Reborn. Patrick belonged only to the past. The echoes of his deceit, the lies he had spun so carefully, now belonged to him alone. He would not shadow this new chapter, would not touch the story Christine was determined to write. For her, there was no room for him, only the hard-earned freedom that came from shedding his influence. Christine realized that life, in its quiet, mocking way, often appears flawless from the outside, while beneath the surface, fractures threaten to splinter everything. And sometimes, to truly rediscover ourselves, we must face those fractures directly, no matter how painful. Her journey had proven that strength was not measured merely by surviving the storm, but by how deliberately we rise from its ruins. By the courage to claim ourselves, to choose our direction, and to insist upon our own dignity. Betrayal had given way to liberation. Grief had carved space for hope. And love, real, untainted, and patient, had taken root where fear had once thrived. Through every agonizing lesson and quiet heartbreak, Christine had discovered the power to script her own story, one built not on lies or dependency, but on honesty, resilience, and a future she had consciously chosen for herself. Because life, she understood, is a series of doors, some closing sharply, some opening slowly, some barely noticeable until you step through them. And while we cannot control which doors will shut behind us, we always have a choice in which doors we dare to enter. Every chapter is ours to write, and Christine was ready. Her pen was in her hand, her heart was steady, and the horizon stretched before her, boundless, inviting, and entirely hers. You just heard this one from Stories by Sue. If it resonated, don't forget to like and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments, I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching.